Hello folks, it's a follow-up to the previous video on Bella de Berlingo here, where I used this Lucas Oil's diesel EGR and turbo cleaner to apparently cure her. Feels like I may have used rather more than you should have done, but nonetheless, there we are. I'm actually going to give her another treatment on this tonight, hopefully avoiding a diesel runaway situation, especially as I'm here on my own this time. And I want to explain a bit more about what was going on, what the runaway was, and hopefully how to avoid that. And then we're going to do an oil change, because it occurs to me I'm flushing all those nasties out of the intake. And yeah, most of it's coming straight out the exhaust as horrible, sort of disgusting smoke. But some of it will inevitably get transferred to the engine oil. Diesels generally, quite dirty engines, do tend to soot up the oil quite regularly. This, I think, has a 12,000 mile oil change interval, but later iterations of this engine were 22, and I don't think they actually changed anything. 22,000 miles. And that is one of the reasons for EGRs clog up. The longer you leave the oil changes, the more soot there is in the oil. The oil then goes through the breather into the intake system, and that, along with the EGR, means you get this horrible icky goo. That is one of the reasons why EGRs get clogged up. So yeah, not good. She's running really nicely, best she's ever driven, pulling so much better below 2000 revs. So I think she's a good deal better, but I'd say she's still a little asthmatic up at the top end, which suggests she's probably still a bit clogged up. In an ideal world, I would get the EGR and the air intake off completely and clean them properly out, but it's just a horrible pig of a job on this engine. I suppose it's one of those jobs, knowing the French, it's probably horrible even if you've got the engine out on a stand, but in the car, I don't want to go there. This seems a much better idea. And yeah, some people saying it won't last very long, but £8 a can, and this isn't sponsored, by the way, I paid my £8 quite happily. I consider this a pretty good solution so far. Yeah, one of the things I want to address, last time we had a problem where it had pulled in the intake, I revved the engine, it sucked a load of it in, and this is very flammable, which is one reason you could hear that cackling noise. That was the engine pinking effectively. So ignition is happening before the piston has got to the top of its travel. You have to really squeeze diesel to make it explode. You don't need to squeeze this will explode quite readily. The runaway situation caused by all this fuel entering a runaway basically is where uncontrolled revs are happening. So we actually had this engine revving all the way up. I'm not sure it went beyond the limiter, but it certainly revved really high. And more often on diesels, that's a situation where perhaps something has leaked into the engine oil and pushed it up to a level it starts getting ingested by the engine, and that leads to a runaway. I did a little short of this with this very impressive clip of smoky smoke. It was a Freelander. I think I found a clip on YouTube, and I was able to sort of remix it into a little short to show how devastating it is. And you only have a few options. The safest one is just to run away, because if that engine lets go, it's revving way beyond its safe parameters. It could just explode, it could kick a com rod out, it could make an absolute mess. If you can, get it in a high gear and stall the engine. You just got to come off the clutch and try and stall it. Not very good for clutches, but clutches are cheaper to replace than engines. Or you got to block off the airflow. The Boss Garage over in Canada have done a video a few years ago where they tried to demonstrate choking the engine, but they proved how difficult it is to choke a diesel engine off. When it's sucking air in, it will suck air wherever it can, so puts a lot of strain on everything. So you don't want to go there. But yeah, driving so much better. So I think I'm probably going to finish this can off and just complete that treatment. We've still got the Miller's fuel additive going through as well, and there's a lot people saying, you know, you've got to rev them, you've got to give them an Italian tune up every now and then. I think there's a lot of sense in that. I'm probably guilty. I don't tend to go up the upper end of the rev range, because before I did this, there was no point going beyond 3000. There was nothing there. Now there's a bit there, but still feels a little flat. But anyway, less talking, more blasting. Right, try and give you an angle to actually show the exhaust. So if there's any smoke going on, you will see it. Fire up the engine. Bella's already going, oh no, not this again. Right, give us a good shake. I will have a peek at the engine oil, but engine oil on a diesel is always dirty, so it's hard to guarantee anything. 1, 2. 1, 2. Yeah, that noise is horrible. I'm also aware that you must probably be washing some of the oil off the bores again. At least with the engine running, you're immediately reapplying oil, but that is a concern. 1, 2. Okay, let's try this. Let's raise the rev slightly. Oh, that feels dangerous. But let's... Doesn't seem to be any smoke. I have a horrible feeling maybe it's done all it can do. But you don't tend to get the pinking I note with the raised revs. Yeah, you see. Yeah, that doesn't look too smoky at all, so that's quite encouraging. Incidentally, I have heard people saying this is just brake cleaner, and that they've used stuff like Mr. Muscle oven cleaner. I'll be very wary of Mr. Muscle oven cleaner. That is very bad for aluminium, but I can't comment on other stuff. This doesn't really give a full list of the ingredients. Yeah, I'm gonna say that raised revs is my preferred way of doing it. I know that's not what it says on here. The directions specifically say somewhere, shake can, spray into intake manifold, do not spray directly into the intercooler. That's another thing I've heard people say, where there is an intercooler, this car doesn't have one, but the intercooler, you suddenly free up all the gunk with it and all that gets sucked in and can cause a runaway. So you do have to be careful with this. But yeah, this just says leave it running. It doesn't mention anything about raising the revs. In extreme cases, dismantle the EGR valve and spray directly into the unit and let it soak. I think that's what we really need, to be honest. That's not an option for us though. I think I'm going to leave it at that. I'm not convinced it's having much of an effect anymore. Certainly not as strong an effect as it was. So I'm just going to leave her running just a little bit. In fact, I may put the pipe on, take her for a quick Italian tune-up, rev the knackers off her just to make sure everything's sucked out, and then we'll do the engine oil change. Well, I'd love to share that Italian tune-up with you, but I entirely failed. Well, actually, I'm not sure what happened. I left the microphone here, so that didn't help. But since then, every clip I recorded, even when I was back here, no sound at all. Marvellous. Good old Rode mics. They are somewhat glitchy, I would say. So I'm doing this just on the normal camera mic. It didn't seem to go too badly in the last video as it happens. So we came back after a mighty good spanking. Lots of 4,000 RPM. She doesn't really want to go much more than that. And came back in. Left her ticking over for a bit, because if you drive a diesel hard, well, not a diesel, any turbocharged car hard, and then immediately turn the engine off, really bad for the turbocharger. You can cook the bearings, you can have sediment build up in the oil feed pipes, kills the turbo. Happens a lot on the 1.6 version of the HDI engine, and starves the turbo. Bearings go, smoke and misery generally guaranteed. So always leave a turbocharged car running for a minute or two after a mild spanking. Even if it's just a motorway, come into the services, leave the engine running just for a bit, then shut it off. It would be very, very sensible advice. I managed not to spill a drop of oil. I've somehow managed to graze my knuckles and my arm. I'm not sure how, but yeah, the oil change itself, it's a piece of cake on these. You don't have to jack them up. You can reach under to the sump plug, and you can just get down the front, albeit there are sharp things about, to do the oil filter. So that was done. I had to make my own funnel, the classic cut down oil can, just to avoid spillage. But yeah, we appear to be there. You use almost all of a 5 litre jug of oil to fill one of these after a service. We've got a tiny amount left, which I will keep in the bag just in case of an emergency. But to be fair, this car generally doesn't use a drop of oil between services. So yeah, hopefully that will set her fair. We'll going forward probably stick to sort of 6,000 mile services. Maybe that's what my Peugeot 306D Turbo used to run on, and that ran very nicely. And we'll see if we can keep the EGR unclogged. Watch this space, there will be further videos. So there you go, really nothing more than an oil change and a bit more of the squirty squirt. But yeah, that magic potion does actually seem to work. So I'll report back and see how long that lasts. I must say a big thank you to someone who was very generously, you know who you are, he doesn't like to be named, but he has very generously sent this from all the way in America. So thank you very much, very nice person. I actually have an impact wrench, and hopefully myself and perhaps even Mini Hubnut. He's currently been doing some learning some engineering with Whiteland Restorations. He wanted me to teach him. What a foolish child, but he's learning very quickly from someone who actually knows what they're doing. So maybe he will get to whizzy stuff with this. We do need to get an engine stand so we can get the Daihatsu engine, wherever that's gone, that's up the back there, dismantled, and work out what's gone wrong with it. And I would like to do the same with a 2CV engine as well. But yeah, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in a future video. If you would like one of these t-shirts like this one, but I've just ruined because I forgot to put my coat back on, these shirts, utterly irrelevant to today's proceedings because they feature my Ford AU Fairmont instead. They're £10.20 on the store, nice and cheap. Or we've got Berlingo merchandise, hoodies, and I really must sort some mugs out. That'd be a good idea, wouldn't it? Yeah, we're hoping to refresh the mug range fairly soon. So head to hubnut.org, get into the store and buy lovely merchandise. With the merchandise, do bear in mind we are going to be away much of August. In fact, we go away mid-July and on a holiday, and then we are away hopefully on the road much of August. So dispatch times are going to vary a great deal. We're hoping to get back home, pack some merch off, and then get traveling again, but delays are going to be held up from the second half of July right through the British summer holidays of August. But yeah, thank you for your support, and we'll see you in a future video. Farewell. To celebrate having Bella back, I've treated her to a pair of Hainer wiper blades here at the front. I don't overly love the design, but they do seem to be working very nicely. And importantly, I finally fitted the correct size rear blade. Look at that for a wiping performance. I've saved that spray specially. Yum.